we are going to get going. As always, we always need to do what I lovingly call the butt covering. This information is meant for your education only. It's not meant to diagnose or prescribe, and you are responsible for any results that you get from using this information, whether they're good or bad. Totally up to you. I do always do my very best to share the best information with you, and there have been times in the past when I shared bad information, and on the very next webinar I corrected it, because not good to be telling lies, is it? Not good at all. Everything is a learning process, and many of you have probably found that in your own careers and professions, that things that you learned in one setting a little time later were proven to be not the best information. And so I'm always learning, and I'm always studying, and I'm always updating. So welcome again today. Welcome, welcome. So excited to have you. I'm just really feeling pumped and stoked. I hope you are too. Our focus today is female hormones, and in particular, we're going to look at women who have medically diagnosed PCOS. I think I've thrown one or two into the pile that were not medically diagnosed, and I'm not allowed to diagnose or prescribe because I'm not a licensed medical practitioner, but I have my suspicions because of different things I see in their eyes and different things the clients are telling me. We're also going to look at some women who have menopausal issues, and I'll mention bits and pieces about various different hormonal things as we go through this and as time warrants. So I hope that's okay with you. I want to thank you for coming. We're only going to be together for about 90 minutes, and I've got my eye on my clock over here, and I've got myself paced out to try to keep us on time today. And I always schedule 90 minutes, so I hope that you have also scheduled 90 minutes and can stay with me right till the very end. We are a fairly small group, and so pretty intimate. And I'm going to encourage you to play with me. It's so much easier for me to teach when there's interaction, and you learn so much more when you're actively involved. When I do a little quiz or a little survey or a poll, I hope you'll participate. I'll ask you to type things in your question box like we already have today, and I hope you'll participate there too. You will learn the most by participating all in. I like to call that playing with me in my sandbox. So I want you to play with me in my sandbox today. I'm going to also invite you to turn off any distractions you can. I've actually taken my trusty smartphone, it's on airplane mode, so that I will not be distracted. I invite you to do that as well. Close the doors. If there's any way you can just remove all your distractions, turn off your Facebook notifications, that would be great. Regardless of what your specialty is, I promise you're going to leave today with information you can use with your clients. One thing I've learned in my many years in this industry is that the best practitioners keep learning. Just as I said earlier, right? We keep learning. So congratulations for being in that group of practitioners who wants to continue on the adventure of learning and becoming better and stronger. I would love to get to know you even more, and so I've got a little poll here that I'd love for you to do. And there we go. That should be on your screen. What iridology training do you already have? And it's perfectly okay. I get people on these webinars who have just heard the word iridology. They know nothing more. I have people that have been certified as constitutional iridologists. So it doesn't matter where you fit. I'd love it if you would check in on this. What iridology training do you already have? Yay. Oh, and thank you. Everyone has voted. Not much yet as most of it, some Jensenian and some constitutional. Wonderful. Lovely. Thank you. That's great. We're going to have a lot of fun today, and you're going to learn things that you can absolutely start using. So some of you, it looks like there's maybe one that is constitutionally trained and one that's Jensenian trained. I'm hoping that in your training, you were taught how to integrate what other modalities you have, whatever they are, herbology, nutrition, aromatherapy, whatever, with iridology. That is one of the big missing pieces that I find in most iridology courses. So I'm hoping that you've got that, and if you don't, you're going to get some of that today. For those of you who are brand new to this, welcome. I'm tickled that you've decided to join me. You know, many years ago, I had a student come to me. I've been teaching iridology webinars since webinars became a thing, probably 12 or 14 years now. I was one of those early adapters, right? And I had a student come to me. She was a naturopath. She had been trained in iridology by one of the biggest names in iridology in the US, not Dr. Jensen, but somebody else who has an equally large reputation. She'd even bought an iridology camera. It wasn't this exact one, but it was a pretty expensive camera like they all are. And she came into my class. She'd hung out with me on some of my free webinars like this one. And she said, you know, I don't know about this iridology stuff. I understand iridology, but I've never used it. I certified years ago, and I don't even know how to use it. And I said, you mean you weren't taught how to tie it in with what you already do? She's a naturopath. She's got training, for goodness sakes. Oh, my stars. And she said, no. And I said, well, hang with me. So she decided that she liked me and my style well enough that she took my class. And this is way back before it was the whole fleshed out IFA curriculum. And by the end of our second class, she sent me an email. She said, I finally get it. I now know how to use my iridology in my practice, and I'm taking photos. She had never even opened her camera. It had sat in the corner for like 5 years in its original packaging. And so after just 2 classes with me, she was getting it. And we had a lot of fun after that. We really launched her to places she didn't know she was going to go. And it's one of the other challenges that we all have is that we are not taught that integration process. Most of the things that we learn are taught as standalones. So we learn this modality, and we have to figure out how to bring that into the scope of what we're doing. One of the things that I love doing with iridology is teaching people how to bring all of those modalities in to integrate with iridology so that it's one great big package for them, because that makes it all useful. You know what? I need to be clicking these. There we go. There I am. I need to watch both my screens. I do want to encourage you also to hang out with me on social media. I publish videos relatively frequently on YouTube, probably one every week or two, depending on time constraints, but I'm pretty active there. Instagram, I'm usually there a couple times a week. Facebook, I'm usually there a couple times a week as well. So I invite you to take a screenshot of this image and join me on any of these or all of these social media platforms to keep up with what's happening and new research and new ideas, and to know when there's more courses and things like that coming up. I have one more poll that I'd like to do pretty quick. I've got a few of these, and like I said, play with me all in because it makes it more fun. I would like to know what training you have in holistic health, because that will help me to tweak this on the fly. You know, if you're more nutrition oriented, if that's the slant of our group today, we'll do a little more with nutrition. If it's more herbs, we'll do that. If we've got some aromatherapists, I'll pull in a little bit of that. We'll really try to make this well-rounded. We may even touch on some iridology, on some, oh yeah, that train derailed. Oh, on some emotional, that's where I was going, on some emotional things as well. So if you've got any background, that's great. And thank you again. We've had everybody weigh in. You're a stellar group. You all get gold stars right from the get-go. I love this. So we've got mostly nutrition, some herbology, a bit of homeopathy, naturopathy, some body energy work, and not much yet, just starting out. We've got the whole gamut. This is wonderful. Thank you so much. That's fabulous. We will have fun playing in the sandbox today. My purpose today then is twofold. Number one is I want to teach you a little bit of iridology as it relates to female hormones. Now, clearly in 90 minutes or less, I can't teach you everything there is to know, but I'm going to teach you a bit, enough to get you started. And number two is I want to teach you to help you see how iridology can help you in your practice, because the reality of the situation in this day and age is that many holistic practitioners are struggling in their businesses, especially if they are not naturopaths. The internet has made it so easy for clients, for people out there to self-diagnose, sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly, and to self-medicate, that if you don't have some kind of a modality that gives you, that makes you stand out from the crowd, you're not going to make it. And that is the sad truth. I have worked with so many students who this was their last ditch. They came and did an iridology course, and the next option on their list was find a real job. That is so sad. If you spent $10 or $20 or $30,000 in how many years getting your training, you've started in a practice, but it's not flourishing, that is so sad. So if you're struggling, it may be because you do not have that unique perspective, that unique selling proposition, as some people call it, but there are other reasons why you might be struggling. And I just want to touch on these at the outset so you can understand how iridology can help you become unique, help you stand out in your area of expertise, to help you build your business even further. The first challenge is you might not know exactly where to start in making your recommendations or in how to set your priorities, your therapeutic priorities. When we're in school, we learned a lot, right? How many of you, and I'd like a show of hands, I just need to get that window open. How many of you that have completed some training or any training feel like you've got a fairly decent amount of information in your head? And it's okay, you're not being prideful or anything like that. Do you feel like you know something that could help people? If you do, let's have you raise your hand. Yeah, you do, right? But sometimes we have so much in our brains that it's difficult for us to sort out, where do I start, where do I go after that, and where do I go after that? Most of us, thank you so much for those of you who raised your hands, that's great. Most of us learn to use intake forms, right? And I know that some of the intake forms that are used by the nutrition schools here in Calgary are incredibly long. They ask questions that are 90% irrelevant to your client's specific issue, which means it's a waste of time for you and your client. So maybe one of the things that you need help with is figuring out, where is my starting point with the client and how do I sequence what I want to do with them? The second issue that we often have is that, I don't know whether it's we feel like we need to prove ourselves that we are better than the medical profession, or we feel insecure, so we're proving ourselves to us. But so often what I see is practitioners see their client, they do that intake session, and then the practitioner goes off and spends 2 or 3 or 4 hours of their own time, unpaid, doing research and developing a protocol and writing this magnificent report to present to their client in the next client session. The key words there were unpaid. So let's look at this. If you're charging $100 an hour for your face-to-face time, but you're not charging for your research time, and you spend 3 more hours putting together a protocol, you are not making $100 an hour. You're earning $25 an hour. Now, in this day and age of the economy that I live in, $25 an hour is a livable wage if I'm making it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, no holidays. But if I'm not seeing 8 clients every day, $25 an hour is not a livable wage. So this becomes a challenge, that we do all this research time outside of our office hours, or outside of our client time, and it literally reduces our income. And I'm not a money grubber. The reality of the fact is we've got bills to pay. We need to eat. We need to take care of ourselves. The third challenge that we have is that when we make those magnificent reports, because we were taught how to do case studies, right? This is your client, this is their case, design a program. And in that case study, you put in everything you would recommend. And that's what you just spent 2 or 3 hours unpaid doing, is creating this beautiful case study report. You present that to your client and you have overwhelmed them. You have snowballed them. One of two things likely happens. Number one, they go, I could never do this, I'm out of here, and they never come back. Or number two, they grab the 2 or 3 things that they think they can do that they think will have the biggest impact, and they never come back. If this is you, how many of you feel like that might be you, that those might be some of the issues you're facing? Let's have you raise your hand. Yeah? Yeah, that's a hard thing to admit, that you're vulnerable like that. Thank you, because it is true, right? It is true. I've spoken to so many people, and thank you for weighing in on that. I've spoken to a lot of clients, a lot of my students who have felt that way. I'm going to show you some basic things today to help you divide that down. But how do you know? How do I know those are your problems? Well, I've been there myself. When I started out in this industry nearly 40 years ago, I took classes and I was mentored. There weren't a lot of classes available, but no one taught me how to create a therapeutic priority sequence. No one taught me how to do things that would make my clients want to come back legitimately. That was important. I had to sort that out on my own. Took a few years, I'll tell you. And number two is I've interviewed a lot of nutritionists, herbalists, and other holistic practitioners, and almost all of them have been there too. They've all spent that extra time doing the homework and creating extensive reports and overwhelming their clients. So if that's where you are, and there was a couple of hands that went up, and there might have been more hands that could have gone up, you know, you're not alone, but you don't need to stay there. You really don't. So this is me. I am Judith Cobb, and I have been a holistic health coach since 1981. Master herbalist since 83, a nutritional consulting practitioner since 94, an NNCP since 2016, certified iridologist, certified the first time in 93. I've certified a few more times since then. And in 2016, I added the certified comprehensive iridology instructor credential. I've been teaching wellness practitioner since 1985. I'm the wife of one, the mom of 7, and the grandma of 7. One of the questions I get asked, are they all your kids? Yep, they are. 1 husband, 7 kids. Very happy with that. When I first started in this industry, there were not very many classes available, especially where I live. Most of the classes were in the US. We didn't have the internet now. For those of you who might be younger than 30 or 35, you might not be able to relate to not having the internet, but we didn't have the internet. So I attended conferences when I could. I would often have a breastfeeding baby in tow, took correspondence courses, which required mailing, not emailing, but snail mailing things back and forth. And I mean, think of it, back then, home telephones still had cords, right? Okay. I learned a lot of things, and as I learned these things, practitioners would ask me to teach them, my clients would ask me to teach them, so I did. And so over these many years, as the internet has flourished and I've taken more courses and workshops that way and attended more conferences, I've amassed even more information, which is great because I love teaching it and sharing it. Over all of these years, I have made probably every mistake a person can make in trying to build a holistic wellness business. I've done it while having and raising our children. I understand what busy looks like. I've invested so much time and so much money, and a lot of it in making those mistakes. I mean, in learning how not to do it. I really don't believe there's such a thing as a mistake. Sometimes a learning experience catapults you forward, and sometimes that learning experience is, well, now I know how not to do things. Or now I know that I need to work it around a different way, right? Totally believe that 100%. I have in my years been blessed to find practitioners and mentors and teachers who were wonderful, who have really supported and guided me along the way. And for them, I'm very grateful. And now I love to do that for other people. So I'm going to ask for another show of hands here. If I could save you some time, some money, some frustrations, show you the way around and things to avoid doing or things to focus on doing to help you make your businesses more successful, would that be a good thing? If it would be, let's have you raise your hand. Yeah, thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, and Nancy, thank you. Marilyn and Lucy, excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you weighing in on that. That's lovely. Because, you know, iridology is something that can help you with all of that. And I'd love to teach you everything I know. Iridology can help you eliminate those intake forms, except for the waiver and release form. We all need the waiver and release form. We need that legal protection that tells our clients who we are, what we can do, what we can't do. If you're like me, you can't diagnose, you can't prescribe. If you're a naturopath, you, depending on where you are, you can diagnose, you can prescribe. I have one student who's a naturopath from Arizona. He's considered a primary care practitioner. He can diagnose and prescribe. So depending on where you are, that will apply. But we need to always have that legal protection, but we want to get rid of those intake forms. If someone gave me an intake form that was 20 pages long, I would throw it away and say, this is not the practitioner for me. Iridology will help you start creating deep rapport from the moment you start the consultation, instead of starting with you looking down to read that awful intake form. Medical doctors are guilty of this as well. You know, medical doctors now here in Calgary are very digital, very electronic. So they come into the office carrying their laptop computer. They set it down on the counter, which means their back is to you, typically, and they're typing away and asking questions while they're talking to their computer, but they're really asking you. If you're lucky, they'll turn around and give you a sideways glance, but there's no eye contact, and we need eye contact to build rapport and to create that human connection. Iridology will help you to do a core assessment in less than 5 minutes. I'm going to demonstrate that towards the end of our time together today. I'm going to show you how iridology, you can get a core assessment in less than 5 minutes. You will know the right questions to ask your clients. It'll help you prioritize what needs to be dealt with now and in future sessions, so that you will have a roadmap for anywhere from 4 to 6 more sessions. You use that roadmap correctly, and that client will come back for at least 4 to 6 more sessions at usually 3 to 4 week intervals. Then you can put them on a 6-month recall. How would it feel? Would it feel good if you knew that your clients would very likely be coming back once a month for 4 to 6 months? Let's have you raise your hand if that would feel good for you. If you knew they would come back on a regular basis, so you didn't have to find new clients all the time to fill your schedule. Yeah, it would feel good, wouldn't it? It helps you with your income. Thank you for weighing in on that. And with this, we also will be, okay, why is this not doing what it's supposed to do? Oh, there we go. It'll eliminate your unpaid homework time when you do iridology correctly, and you will stop overwhelming your clients, because you're going to learn how to break everything you want to recommend into doable pieces that will help your clients get results from appointment to appointment. So massively successful in baby steps rather than a huge failure in one step. This is how one of my students put it when she had completed the course. She came into me super trained already. She had studied with Dr. David Pesek, and she already had completed his levels 1, 2, and 3 iridology, and she'd done Darko Purse's iridology in professional practice. So, and she'd had a lot of years under her belt already. This is what Michelle Davies said. She said, this is the most amazing iridology course I've taken. Judith's course is top on my list. Judith's Iridology course is very informative, descriptive, and complete as it contains the most accurate iridology, including sclerology, and most importantly, how to put it all together and make a proper assessment. I feel most confident in my nutrition practice now. Now, Michelle, lovely student, absolutely loved having her in my classes. And just as she finished her coursework and was getting ready to certify, she hit some speed bumps in her personal life and she decided she was not going to do the exams. She and I had a little chat. I was like, Michelle, my goodness, you are so close. Don't give up now. Let's just regroup, give yourself a month or two to let that settle, and then let's get these exams done. So I finally talked her into it. This is what she said after she's certified. I am so proud of my students. Woohoo! Yeah, so amazing to become certified. It was a great journey through Judith's classes and extended webinar tutoring. Her faith and personal care really made the difference and encouraged me to the finish line. But it doesn't end here. I have gained confidence in myself in promoting good health through nutrition, lifestyle, and personal awareness for optimal health. All righty, so I'm really hoping this does not sound too good to be true, because here is what Michelle learned. She learned that with iridology, she could gather that base of information, let the eyes teach her what questions to ask. She learned that the intake is a rapport building. You don't waste your client's time on unnecessary paperwork. She really learned then how to integrate everything she already knew, because she came in with a lot of herb and nutrition training as well. She learned how to integrate that through our coursework together. So let's launch in. Let's do a quick review of the endocrine system. And I know you all know this, but we need to have that common ground. So the endocrine system is made up of glands that secrete substances, aka hormones, directly into the bloodstream. And these hormones regulate many different functions and actions and responses in the body. The endocrine glands, starting at the top, are the pineal, the pituitary and the hypothalamus, the thyroid and parathyroids, the thymus, the pancreas, the adrenals, the ovaries, and if you're a man, the testes, but we're not talking about men today. We're talking about women. It's also important to remember that during pregnancy, the placenta is an endocrine gland. And we know now, within the past about 8 or 10 years, that there are other organs and tissues in the body that have endocrine functions as well. So in many circles, you will hear the heart referred to as an endocrine gland, the gastrointestinal tract, the kidneys, the skin, and fat tissue. Those all have endocrine functions as well. And so they're not listed as actual endocrine glands, but they have endocrine functions, and we need to be aware of them. So specifically today, we're going to focus on female hormones as they relate to PCOS and menopause. Now, show of hands, how many of you know what PCOS is? PCOS, do you know it by its longer name, polycystic ovarian syndrome? Okay, so many of you do. So good. Thank you. For those of you who may not be familiar with this yet, PCOS accounts for about 10% of all female infertility. It's becoming an epidemic because it is related to syndrome X. And we know that syndrome X, or insulin resistance, aka type 2 diabetes, is absolutely hitting pandemic levels. It is, they're anticipating that within the next about 10 to 20 years, 1/3 of the North American population will have some type of diabetes, whether it's type 1, type 2, or type 3. So PCOS is a part of that as it relates to women in their reproductive years. So when we're talking about PCOS and menopause, the hormone imbalances that we might be looking at could come from the ovaries, thyroid, pancreas, adrenals, and liver. So we're going to learn markers that tie into these imbalances today, but they're going to be very broad. We're not going to look at necessarily the ovary reaction field or the pituitary reaction field or the thyroid reaction field in the eye. We're going to look at more global markers that triangulate, that play with one another and change our understanding of how the body works. Remember, as we do this, iridology does not tell us answers. We never use iridology to diagnose or prescribe. Iridology teaches us what questions to ask. So I want to have you type in some things here for me. Those of you who are familiar with PCOS, what are the kinds of things that you are looking for? What are the symptoms you would commonly look for in a woman who has PCOS? So if you would just start your comments with PCOS dash and then point form the things you would look for. And if a few of you would do that, and if some of you would do the same for menopause. So type in meno, M-E-N-O dash, and then what are some of the key symptoms you look for or you hear from your clients when you know you're working with a menopause situation. So we'll give you just a little minute to do some lightning fingers work there before we actually start looking at our first set of eyes. Again, I'm just assessing how much you know and where I need to take the presentation today. And if you've got even a few ideas written down, and you can click send and then do some more and click send again, so we've got some material to fill the dead air space with, that would be grand. Technology still amazes me that we've got people as far away as Florida and the UK, and you can type things in and I see it within seconds. I still get excited about things like that. Very cool. All right, typing, 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 right? Typing, typing, typing. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Ooh, ooh, love it. Oh my goodness. Love, love. Okay. Lovely. So for PCOS, Joanne says menstrual issues, weight gain, abnormal hair growth. Stephanie says for PCOS, weight gain, facial hair, mood imbalance. Lucy says PCOS, irregular periods, excessive hair growth and weight gain. Yeah, Courtney says for menopause, weight gain, hot flashes. Nancy says for menopause, hot flashes, irregular periods, heavy menstruations. Yeah, good one. Courtney says for PCOS, extreme cramping, excessive hair, or so I've heard. Yeah, Courtney, actually, yeah, often it'll be male pattern hair growth. So thinning hair on the top of their head, but facial hair coming in, hairier arms, things that they don't want to have. Lucy says for menopause, night sweats, irregular periods, anxiety, depression, mood swings. Yeah. Menopause from Stephanie, hot flashes, mood imbalance, irritability, sleeplessness, brain fog. Brilliant. Joanne says menopause for hot flashes, previous menstrual issues. Joanne also says hot flashes, menopause again, irritability, night sweats, etc. And for PCOS, discomfort, pain, weight issues, etc. You are brilliant. You are absolutely brilliant. That is so right on. Lovely. When we talk about PCOS, you're going to pick up some things here now. All right. Thank you for playing with me on that one. That was brilliant. Okay. This is our first woman who has had PCOS, has PCOS. It's a tendency that once you've got it, you never lose it. You have to be ever vigilant to keep it under control and to make sure things stay balanced. This young woman was married at the age of 24. For some bizarre reason, she gained about 60 pounds in the 4 months leading up to her wedding. Then just 4 months after getting married, she had an ectopic pregnancy, and she tried for a couple of years after that to get pregnant, but her periods became irregular. And when we talk about irregular and we're talking about PCOS, we need to think of long cycles. So she was often going 60 days from day one to day one. Her weight was continuing to creep up, And she went to her medical doctor, and I was stunned, amazed, and very pleased when her medical doctor on her very first appointment said, we're going to run lab tests, but I'm pretty sure you've got polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so that was when she came to see me, because while the doctor was running lab tests, he didn't give her any information about what she could do about it. He was simply going to run the blood tests and work from there. So when I looked at her eyes, there we go. When I looked at her eyes, I noticed a couple of really key markers. First thing I noticed was in her right iris, and this is her right iris. This is as if we're looking at her and her nose is sitting right here. In her right iris, I noticed a bulge out, that this fiber goes pop and bulges out. And I noticed that it does that again in the lower regions down here, pops out. Those areas are popping out to put pressure into the pancreas cells. So it suggests a significant risk to her pancreas, that her pancreas may be programmed to not function well. So I asked her about her diet, especially sweet and carb cravings, and she was guilty as charged. Additionally, she comes from a family that has a strong German ancestry, so any and all traditional German foods and treats were very fair game. In fact, for a period of time, she worked in a German deli and got special pricing, of course, on everything, and really ran into some problems there. I measured her waist, and her waist was well over 36 inches. And 36 inches is your cutoff for that division between the likelihood of being insulin resistant and not being insulin resistant. So anything over 36 inches, you go, yeah, probably insulin resistant. As you already know then, PCOS includes insulin resistance. So here's what happens in PCOS, and this is going to be a little technical, so listen carefully. I'll go a little bit slowly so you can get this all written down. As the blood sugars go up, the insulin goes up. The cells resist letting the insulin sugar complex in, and the blood sugars and the insulin continue to rise. As the insulin continues to rise, the sex hormone binding globulin gets bound up, and its primary job is to keep testosterone in check. But when it's bound up, the testosterone starts to rise as well. That pushes the estrogen and progesterone further out of balance. That all then pushes the thyroid out of balance and makes it become hypoactive. So now we have an underfunctioning thyroid. We have too much blood sugar that instantly gets converted to fat, and the weight goes up. The estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and thyroxine are all messed up, and so that messes up ovulation, the possibility of conceiving, the possibility of carrying a pregnancy to term. And with these women, if conception does occur, the likelihood that they will have an ectopic pregnancy skyrockets. If the conception does not go ectopic, if it actually goes uterine and implants, the risk of miscarriage skyrockets, because their hormones are absolutely out to lunch. Doctors deal with this completely and entirely with Clomid and maybe metformin. The other thing we notice in this image is that she has a major lacuna right here in her left eye that is coming up right through the pituitary and the hypothalamus. So that tells us then that the very key, most foundational functional endocrine glands are probably going to need a lot of support. Hypothalamus tells pituitary what to do. Pituitary tells everything else what to do. So if hypothalamus and pituitary are both genetically programmed to be out of balance, we have a huge job in front of us. Now, there are actually 14 different kinds of lacunae, and of course, we don't have time to go into all of those right now, and each one means something slightly different. With this client, we started her out with getting her to do her basal metabolic temperature charting. And we had her start on day 5 of her cycle. And what we discovered that her cycles were typically 50 to 60 days long. She had a short luteal phase. So the beginning part of her cycle, the low temperature or the follicular phase was long. It was too long. And her luteal phase was too short. So she was ovulating, but the long follicular phase guarantees infertility. She's ovulated, but she's never going to conceive with that. The short luteal phase makes it very difficult for an embryo to actually implant and stay stuck. So, so we started working with her in that regard. I asked her what she was willing to do beyond temperature charting, because obviously her hormones needed some work, and she just wanted a baby so much. She was willing to do absolutely anything I asked her. I don't usually dump the whole load on a client in the first go, but this woman was motivated. She was desperate. She was anxious, and she was afraid because she had actually then conceived once, and it was ectopic, ended up in emergency surgery where she lost that fallopian tube. Now, even if we got her hormones balanced, she only had a 50% chance of conceiving because she only had the one functioning tube. So she was willing to do everything I asked her. So we cut out all her carbs. We left her with protein and low carb vegetables. She was so strict. Oh my goodness, she was strict. And we got her to start walking 30 minutes every day. She was on a super tight budget, and so we couldn't introduce anything beyond a really good prenatal vitamin. But that's okay because she was being so strict with her diet that we didn't need to introduce anything. She continued her temping, and her chart for the next cycle was night and day difference. It was like same body. How could that be? It was amazing. She had an 18-day follicular phase, which is so workable. She had a 12-day luteal phase, which is almost textbook perfect. 14 would be perfect, but 12 is very workable. And over the next 4 months, she lost 60 pounds. No starvation dieting, just focusing on protein and low carb veggies and walking every day. She never felt hungry. Her energy improved every month. And then she got pregnant. She was really anxious, but she carried to term. She learned what she needed to do so well that she stayed on that and went on to have 3 more babies over the next 4 years. And then she kind of thought, well, I think I've done at least for now. And she started to get sloppy. So she started eating not so tightly. She stopped working out quite the same way. Her cycle started getting wonky. And she came and she said, what do I do? I said, go back to what you know. So not only did she go back to what she knew with the diet, but she became a personal trainer and she trains specifically, she trains people to do Spartan obstacle racing. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So that was one case, and she was a pretty simple and pretty responsive case. There was nothing really weird about that. We just need to keep her blood sugars really balanced. There's so much more that these eyes can teach us that don't relate to PCOS, and that is one of the reasons why I teach iridology classes. And it's so much easier when my screen changes properly. Okay, what are you seeing? Okay, why is it hung up? That's weird. Slight technical issue on my side that my slides are not changing. Okay, let me just escape out of this, pop us down to there, and bring us back. Okay, hopefully this has fixed it. So the next course is actually starting in just 2 weeks on October 17th. We have choices of 2 time slots, 11 a.m., which is the time we started today, and classes are 2 hours long, or 5 p.m., which obviously is 6 hours later than what we started today. And there will today be, during this webinar, a fast action promo. So we'll do registration information in a few minutes, but if you register during this webinar, you're going to get a special pricing structure. So just to keep that in mind, but note, space is really limited. I limit my classes to 5 to 6 students per class. So when classes are full, whether we're still within the webinar time today or whether it's later on, registration closes. So just to be aware, I keep my classes small because I want you to get the attention you need when you're learning this. Registration is at confidentnutritionist.com and it is open now. Let's look at some more eyes. This is a client who came to me having tried to get pregnant for a couple of years. She succeeded in getting pregnant once and miscarried very early on. That was about 18 months before we started working together. Now, I kind of have a bone to pick with the medical people she was working with because they had diagnosed her as having type 2 diabetes. They had kind of rushed through, you might have PCOS, and kind of went, and there was no further education, no further information. Again, they had recommended Clomid, and that was it. Now, she is type 2 diabetic, and she does definitely have PCOS. We're going to look at some things that show us that in just a moment. You'll notice these eyes are very different from the previous eyes we looked at. They're not blue eyes. They don't have anything bulging off the collarette. They have different markings that make us suspect that we've got hormonal imbalances or a predisposition to such. This client was not overweight at all. Very slender Chinese woman. And so to look at her, you'd be very surprised. You wouldn't think PCOS, you wouldn't think type 2 diabetes. But her temperature charts were really erratic and her cycles typically were 60 plus days long. Remember, I said that the longer the cycle, the less likely she is to conceive. So this was her very first temp chart. I have all my clients use Fertility Friend, have them share their logout information with me so that I can get in there and check their charts a couple of times a week. That's a contract situation with them, which is another really great idea if you're working with clients on something that will take time to set up a situation where they pay monthly, but they know what they're getting. So these clients get a 30-minute face-to-face or telephone consultation once a month. I check their charts twice a week until they get pregnant, and then I check them every day. And I tweak their program between appointments if needed. But I find that with doing that kind of a contract situation, these people stay much more focused. They stay on track, they stay with me. So here we have really erratic follicular phase temperatures, really erratic. And then she comes up and she does an okay arc for her luteal phase, but this follicular phase is way too long. Anything over 21 days will render an infertile cycle even if she has actually ovulated. So keeping that in mind then, and going back to her eyes, instead of the leaf-shaped things and the bulgy things, we have contraction furrows. That's these lines coming around here. And we have radial furrows. Contraction furrows teach us that this client spends most of her time in working in her sympathetic nervous system. She's always on the edge of fight, flight, or freeze, always waiting for the next bomb to drop, the next crisis to hit, the next that she needs to deal with. And so that is going to put her in a situation where her cortisol is always way elevated, which is going to make her insulin resistant, right? When we add radial furrows also speak of nervous system interruption and a few other things. They intensify the impact of contraction furrows. So when we look at this, we know that that is where her problems likely are coming. She's got to keep her blood sugars balanced. She's got to keep her stress in check. She being Chinese, I found that most of my my Asian clients have a huge problem. They come from a culture where rice is every meal. And then there's some things with the rice. And so my Asian clients always eat rice 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 12 times a day. And then they add to that the worst of North America. So her diet was largely rice. Her breakfast was like a pastry. And I'm going, okay, we've got some work to do here. So we did that work. I asked her husband, how does she handle stress? And her husband, who's a sweet, sweet man with a great sense of humor, looked at her sideways, literally sideways, and smiled and said, yeah, she's not very nice. And she agreed, not nice when she's under stress. She just wanted everyone to go away. So when she was under stress, all she wanted was carbs and wine. Right? That's not going to help her get to where she wants to go. When we look at all of these contraction furrows and all of these radial furrows, we need to look at some other things with them. So these radial furrows coming up through the top are coming up through brain regions. So this one is going right through the pituitary, for instance. Now this one is coming right through the pituitary, and they're both reaching into the hypothalamus. So we've got that kind of a foundation happening here that's going to mess up everything below it. When we stack that on top of the contraction furrows, we've got a real predisposition towards blood sugar imbalances. So I asked her about exercise. She said her favorite exercise was watching her husband play soccer. We needed to change that too. We explained the risk of type 2 diabetes, the fact that if she had that, she would probably not get pregnant. And if we didn't have it under control really solidly, if she did conceive like she had before, she would probably miscarry. That was enough to get her totally on board. She has done such a radical job of cleaning up her diet. This is what her charts look like now. She's tending to run 19 to 21 days on her follicular phase, which is a little on the long side, but if we can keep it 21 or less, I'm happy. She has a really tight, a much tighter temperature span in that follicular phase rather, and her luteal phase is gorgeous, just gorgeous, like she studied for this exam. She's walking every day, and we can see on her chart the days she doesn't walk. She's really good with her diet, and I tell her if you desperately need to have a glass of wine or something sweet, have it on day 1 of your cycle, or you can have a small portion within 30 minutes after you've gone for your 30-minute walk, but a very small portion. As long as she does that, she stays in balance. So one other thing to note here is that I suspect she actually has some issues with the MTHFR gene defect. How many of you have heard of MTHFR? Let's have you raise your hands if you have. Yeah? Okay, a few of you. MTHFR is a genetic defect that is very, very common in North Americans and even more common in Asians. It has to do with the liver and how the liver methylates folic acid and other B vitamins that need methylating. If you've got the MTHFR defect, the chances of being polycystic ovarian syndrome skyrocket. So I suspect that she is PCOS and that she has MTHFR. Unfortunately, our labs here in Calgary will not do the MTHFR test anymore. So we will not know that unless she opts to pay about $600 to get the test done in a private lab somewhere else. So I'm still working with this client. Her cycles get better and better every month, and we're really hopeful that she will conceive soon. Educating the client is so important, and it's something that the medical world doesn't do. It's something that we have to do if we want to really help our clients get the most out of their work with us. All right, I want to find out how you've been paying attention. Maybe you've been taking notes, maybe you haven't. What is the name of the marking that intensifies the impact of contraction furrows? Is it collarettes, radial furrows, lacunae, or MTHFR? Okay, this is a tough one because I only mentioned it once or twice. Everyone who's voted has gotten it right so far. Oh, does that put pressure on you if you're going to guess? Anyone else want to weigh in on this? Give you 5 more seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So, well, 2/3 of you have voted. That's great. And you've all got it correct. Brilliant. For those of you who maybe missed it going through, because I did go through it pretty quick, radial furrows. Radial furrows increase the impact of contraction furrows. So there's so much to learn, and I just want you to understand what's included in the course when we teach it. Beginning to intermediate iridology and sclerology, and both of those are at a level that will prepare you for the IPA certification exam if you choose to do that, and IPA charges an additional fee for that exam. We will include basic nutrition and basic herbology. As the students are aware, it's not that I'm actually teaching nutrition or teaching herbology. It's more that we're just integrating what you already know, because of course nutrition and herbology are entire standalone courses, and I know you all come in with various backgrounds like that. We'll be teaching in that course, of course, what are the differences between blue eyes, brown eyes, and the eyes that are somewhere in between, because they all mean different things. We'll teach you how to be the best clinical iridologist you can be, and really want to teach you how to be ready for the IPA certification exam. I just need to underscore, I'm not teaching nutrition or herbology as standalones in here. So how will this benefit you in your practice? This is how. You will learn iridology and how to create programs right in your sessions and eliminate the unpaid homework time. You will learn how to do a base assessment in 5 minutes or less without lengthy intake paperwork, and you'll save time and do a better assessment. You will learn how to ask only questions that are relevant to your client's needs. You will learn how to prioritize the problems your clients need help with. You will learn how to, sorry, I just need to enlarge the screen here. You will learn how to connect what you already know about nutrition and or herbology to what you discover using dynamic iridology. And you will learn how to do a deeper assessment for more direction and understanding of your client's needs when that is needed. This is how one of my graduates put it. This is Karen Choate. She says, it's been such a pleasure studying under you and learning from you. I really miss our classes. I hear that a lot, but I'm looking forward to completing this component of iridology and continuing my education, most hopefully with you. It truly has helped immensely in my decisions and assessments. Now, Karen came to me already certified as a CNHP. And so she had lots of nutrition and a bit of herb training behind her. And we taught her with iridology how to integrate it all and make her consultations more tight. After she finished her exams, she said, "Thank you, Judith. I'm so very happy. This is a dream realized. And I'm so very thankful that I had the best teacher to educate me. Forever grateful, Karen Choate." And so that is very cool. Love, love, love my students. How do I teach this to you? And how do I help build your confidence? Because that is so important. You can know everything, but not be confident enough to show what you know, right? And if you ever find that that's a bit of a problem, if you feel like your confidence could use a boost, let's have you raise your hand. And this is really vulnerable. I won't even mention names. But if you feel like, yeah, thank you for being vulnerable. Yeah, it really is true, right? We sometimes suffer a little bit with that, and we hide our best selves, which means we don't do our best for our clients. So how do we do this? The course is 20 sessions long via live webinars, just like this, with one difference. Because I know who's on the call, and I know there's no hecklers in the call, just kidding. I unmute your microphones, so we have back and forth constant chat going the whole class. I'm talking, you're asking questions, we're discussing. Each class is recorded in its entirety and posted on a student website, so you can re-listen to the class to reconfirm anything that you need to. The content is edited into short topic videos, and it's stored on the student site for you to review for 18 months from our start date. After 18 months, you are migrated to an alumni site, and it's kept up to date, and that way I'm only having to maintain one extra site, but beyond the course I'm teaching. You have a digital textbook that is actually available in one download. We've revamped it so you don't have to wait every week for what comes next. You get it all in one download. We have cheat sheets. The textbook is 200 pages long, full color, lots of diagrams. The cheat sheets take all of the content and break it down into charts that take about 50 pages. So it's the name of the marker, what the marker looks like, a description of it, symptoms you would commonly see with it, questions you would ask, lifestyle recommendations, herbal and nutritional recommendations. So the cheat sheets are what you use when you're actually with your clients so you can find things quickly. Each class starts with a review of the previous week. The first question beyond how are you, how's your week been, is always, are there any questions? And sometimes we're on week 15 and a student says, yeah, I was reviewing week 2. Can we go back? Yes, we can. We need to make sure it's all solid. Each week, there's a lot of practice in class and interaction. I try to save 30 to 60 minutes out of every class for us to practice, and discuss to make sure you are solid. If you were doing this face-to-face, you would be practicing on the other students in the group. So you might have 5 or 6 people to practice on. Doing this virtually over the internet, I have thousands of eye pictures. So we get lots of practice, lots of variety. You get a certificate of attendance for attending 80% of the classes live. We have a private Facebook group just for my students and alumni. Post questions. If you've got iPhotos of a client that you want some help with, post them there, and other students and grads will help you. So will I. And we also every month do a Q&A or an office hours session, again, where students can submit cases, or if there's a topic that I think we need to be reviewing, we'll use that as our topic of discussion for that day. And we just want to make sure that you have ongoing support. Your access to Facebook and office hours will only end when I quit teaching. So you have ongoing support for, I'm hoping, 10 or 15 years. I'm not planning on quitting real soon. This is what I do for fun, right? So what's the course worth? If you know right now that you want training and you want certification, the tuition is $19.95. That, if you're in the US or you're paying with US dollars, is about $14.95 US. So there's 2 packages to choose from, and I'm just going to cover this one first, just briefly. One thing you need to know is that the exchange rates between Canada and US really favor you if you're in the States. Your dollar's worth about 30% more than ours. And so when you pay for the course using the pay buttons on the websites, it will automatically process at whatever the exchange rate is. Now, if you're in Canada, you're going, yes, I don't have to pay in US dollars. And if you're in the UK, you might be going, yes, I don't have to pay in US dollars. We've had people on the call in the past from Australia, and your dollar is just about on par with the Canadian dollar. So that's pretty cool for you too. There will be later on little information about a fast action discount, and it's a discount that's only valid for a while we are in this webinar. So if you know right now that you want certification, then you want the $19.95 option. If you're thinking, I want the information, but I really don't want to do tests, I don't want to certify, then choose option 2. Without the certification package, it is $14.95 Canadian. Again, that's roughly $11.25 American. For the exact same curriculum, you're in the exact same class setting as the kids, I'll call you kids, who are doing the exams, right? But you're not paying to get the extra tutoring that goes with the exam section. What you need to know is that the exams that IPA prescribes is exam part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1 and 2 are included in your $19.95. Part 1 is I provide you with 10 case studies, and this is where you're going to do iridology, not the way I teach you. You're going to work it through as a case study, send them back to me. I'm going to mark them. We'll discuss them. We'll see if you need any shoring up in any areas. We'll talk about what you're doing really well. When you and I agree that you are rock solid, then we move on to IPA exam part 2, where I provide you with a case study that IPA has given me. You write it out, do your analysis, send it to me. I mark it, and then we discuss again. We get onto a private webinar, we discuss that. And when you and I agree that you are totally rock solid, I let IPA know you're ready for exam part 3. You send in the application with the $200 American exam fee to do the exam and get everything set up, and there you go. That's the exam protocol. And so the $19.95 includes part 1, the 10 cases, and part 2, the 1 case, and all the support that goes with that to make sure you're ready to sit for the final exam. Now, with all of this, I know you're going to go online. You might even be opening a second screen right now to look and see, well, is that a reasonable tuition to pay? And I want you to stop and think about this. You can find Iridology courses online where to cover the entire IPA curriculum costs 5 or 6 days of your time. Sometimes it's done as 2 separate weekends, but let's pretend it's just done as a 6-day workshop. So you have your tuition, which is probably $700 for a 6-day workshop. You have airfare to get there, which is maybe what, $500 depending on where you live. You have hotel and accommodation while you're there, which for 6 days is probably going to be $700-ish American. You have all of your meals while you're there, which let's lowball that. Let's say $30 a day. You have ground transportation when you get there. And you have all that time off work. What is a full week off work worth to you? At 150 day, that might be $750. We have gone way beyond. We are easily up in the neighborhood of $2,500, $2,600. On the non-financial side of that, I don't know what your brain is like. I know what mine is like. I get into one of these long workshops, and by the end of like lunch on day 2, my brain is mush. I've stopped absorbing. My hand might still be going. I might still be making notes. But by the end of day 2 or into day 3, I've given up on taking notes, and I'm just trying to learn something, and I'm probably not doing it very well. I would far rather take a course where I could do 2 hours of learning, go home and study and practice and work on it and review it, get it solid, then go and do 2 more hours of learning and just build my knowledge so that I know I've got it right. You know, that's why I teach this as 22-hour sessions. My goal is to turn out iridologists who are so strong and so good that they can stand shoulder to shoulder with any other iridologist in the world and not feel like they need to shrink back and hide. I want them to be confident and totally on top of it. If that sounds like what you would like out of an iridology program, let's have you raise your hand. That you want to come out not just knowing your stuff, but being totally confident. Yeah, awesome, thank you. Right on, because that's the goal. And you've seen from the testimonials that that's what we deliver. Awesome. Let's look at a menopause situation. This is a client who I'm going to be more than 90 minutes today. I can see that already with my time. I'm not doing a great job of staying on time, for which I profusely apologize. So if you can hang on with me beyond the 90 minutes, please do. Female in her early 50s. There's no marking anywhere that says menopause, just like there's not one specific marking that says PCOS or infertility. But we've already learned about contraction furrows and how they relate to the adrenal glands, right? That this person spends a lot of time in the sympathetic response zone. That's how she was genetically programmed when she was conceived. So that's important information here. I firmly believe that most women's adrenal glands are exhausted by the time they hit menopause. They've been caring for children and a spouse, and now that the woman's in menopause, she's probably caring for aging parents and issues with adult children, and it just piles up. And grandchildren, right? So the stress never ends. When the ovaries start to slow down, the adrenal glands are supposed to jump in there and produce more androgen, which is supposed to get converted to estrogen. And androgen gets converted to progesterone. My mistake there. But it also gets, I totally messed that up. I'm concerned about being over time. Do that again. Androgen and progesterone both come from the adrenal glands. Androgen also gets converted into estrogen when it passes through fat cells. There, we've got it right. But if your adrenals are tired, are they going to make the androgen properly? Are they going to even keep up with their progesterone production? This woman's been a client of mine for 4 or 5 years now. Just love her to pieces. She's had 10 years of significant stress, from a teenage child dying with brain cancer to, oh my goodness, the stress she has is just incredible. I've asked her about her diet, and pretty clean, pretty clean. She likes her veggies, she likes her protein, she likes a little fresh fruit. She takes a broad variety of supplements, and I've sometimes had to say, whoa, slow it down. That, and that, we need to get rid of them. This and this are really good. We want to tuck this into, but those other ones, yeah, they're not doing you any good. This woman is really active. She skis, she runs, she belly dances, she teaches belly dance. Lots of fun. So, whoops, that's not where I meant to go. So, sounds pretty good, right? She drinks coffee. And from the get-go, I've always tried to convince her about why coffee is bad for her. And it's more than that the caffeine stimulates hot flashes. And for most women, even decaf will do that for them. It's more than the coffee actually triggers hormonal headaches for her. It's because there's so many other reasons. But for her, you know, we looked at the contraction first, we looked at her digestive zone. So finally, she called me and she said, these hot flashes, these night sweats, oh my goodness, I'm up 3 times a night to change my sheets. My moods are really messed up because I'm sleep deprived. I just feel crappy all the time. And so again, I taught her, you got to give up the coffee. But giving up the coffee, she'd given up so many things. She had so much loss in her life that it just felt like giving up the coffee was one more thing, and she couldn't do it. So I said, can we do an experiment? Could you give up the coffee for just 1 week? And then go back to drinking it, and let's compare with and without. So she did that, and she called me after she had reintroduced the coffee. She said, oh my goodness, when I quit the coffee, the hot flashes almost completely stopped. They're very mild, warm waves. They don't wake me up in the night. I'm not sweating anymore. When I added the coffee back in, I'm flooding the place with sweat. So now she had it. She's finally found a coffee substitute that she can really enjoy. That means she doesn't have to drink coffee anymore. So she's really doing well. She's got that all under control. Her eyes give us so much more information about her digestive tract, about how her kidneys want to function, about areas of her body that are becoming congested, that there's a lot more that we can do with her. But again, we're limited for time. Let's see how one of my other students, what she said. This is Helen Murdoch. She said, I've been looking for a while for the right iridology course, and I knew immediately when I saw Judith that this is it. Her inclusion of nutrition and herbs was definitely a winner. Judith's teaching style is mostly interactive as she engages us, the students, in lively discussions. Judith's knowledge base is so all-encompassing. We, the students, believe she knows everything. I love that. That's so cute. She operates like a coach with her use of motivational inquiry to help build our confidence as well as professionals. The content of this course is so diverse, so much more than I had expected from an iridology course. I strongly recommend Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology to anyone who wants to learn iridology. So, what is the tuition? Now, you need to know registration. General registration closes on October 15th or when the classes are full. And again, I only take 5 to 6 students per class. We've got the 2 time slots, so 10 to 12 students in this next go round. And I don't open new spaces because that wouldn't be fair. If you registered for the course thinking there was only 5 or 6 and I opened new spaces and we now had 10 or 12 in one time slot, you'd feel pretty bummed out about that, I think. So I don't open new slots for anything. Someone is always saying, I want to do it, but I don't have $19.95 in my back pocket. Is there a payment plan? And my answer is yes, there is. 4 payments of $5.49, and you are in like Flint. I love payment plans. I do everything on payment plans, even if I just do. It just makes it easier. I get what I want when I want it, and it works out well. Now, if you're opting for the course that doesn't include the certification prep, then you have 4 payments of $419. Again, on the website, confidentnutritionist.com. And if you're interested in that and you go to that landing page, scroll all the way down to the bottom. Under the last big yellow register me now buttons, you'll see some text links, and those are your 4 pay links. Okay, remember it's all in Canadian dollars. Now, I want to add one more layer to this, and that is, I promised you a fast action promo, right? Fast action, and that is you get registered before the end of our webinar today, and your tuition will only be $17.95 for the full course with the exam prep, or $13.45 if you don't want exam prep. Either way, you're saving a full 10%. And someone always says, well, is there a payment plan for the fast action as well? The answer is yes, there is. And that is a 4-pay of $4.99 right down at the bottom of that registration page again. Or, whoops, a 4-pay of $381.50. I'm sorry, that bumped around. There we go. Give that a moment to come back. Or a 4-pay of $381.50. And again, only available to the end of this webinar. So registration is at confidentnutritionist.com. So it's called Confident Nutritionist. Some of you are saying, but I'm a herbalist, or I'm an aromatherapist, or I'm a something else. Will I get anything out of it? And the answer is yes. You know, when you're naming a course, you can't say Confident Nutritionist, Herbalist, Naturopath, Aromatherapist, right? It's just too obtuse. So Confident Nutritionist, and just know that because I am an iridologist and a nutritionist and a herbalist, and I do aromatherapy, do a little bit with flower essences, I pull in whatever the focuses and needs of the students are. Again, we talked a little bit about this already, about the IFA certification exam protocol. 3 parts, part 1 and part 2 you do with me if that is the option you chose. Part 3 you do through IPA after I've told them that they can expect your application form. And the exam, depending on who you believe, is either $175 or $200. They're in the process of automating it, and there's talk of that exam fee going up. So you just need to know that. Now, what if you opted for the no exam prep and you decide partway through the course, I really think I want to do the exam prep, I want to certify? Not to worry. I have a separate standalone exam prep package for my students who decide at a later date that that's what they want to do. Okay, so you can, whatever works for you is great. We'll make it fit. Why would you want to study with me? Well, I've been where you are. I understand the financial and time constraints of running a business, taking care of a family, home, friends, and other important commitments. I've done this while having and raising 7 kids. Now that our kids are out of the house, my husband's parents and my parents are aging, and we are some of the closest children to them, which means we get called on a lot, which we love. We love, love, love taking care of our parents. But it's a time demand. And so I get busy. I know busy. That's another reason for doing a course 2 hours at a time. I understand learning needs. We all don't learn in the same way, which is why we've got written, which is why we do audio visual, which is why we've got recordings, which is why we've got interactive, because there's a way for you to learn. I understand there's a lot to learn and it can be overwhelming, but I've got a lot of pieces in place to help you with that learning. And I know it's less expensive to study with a teacher who charges in Canadian dollars. I always look for that because, you know, a lot of Canadian teachers actually charge American dollars. And it's like, wow, really? Really? And I'm committed personally to you learning. You're not going to get passed off to an assistant. You get me, and that's a part of why I keep my classes small. Oh, again, there we go. So the class begins on Wednesday, the 17th of October. When you register, you will choose a time the early slot or the late slot. You don't get to bounce back and forth because, oh, someone's coming for dinner, or I've got a medical appointment or whatever. You choose a slot, and that is your cohort. That's good because you get to know the people in your group. Remember that we have daylight savings time changing to standard time sometime in November, I believe it is. So be sure of how this is going to affect you. To get registered, go to confidentnutritionist.com. We've still got more Iridology, so stick with me if you can. Select the course package you would like to register for. They're very clearly labeled. Pay the tuition. And then check your email for the form. Let me know if you don't receive it within an hour of registering, and I will personally send it to you as soon as I get your email message. You need to, this is the non-automated part, you need to print the form up, complete the form, scan it or take pictures of it and email it back to me. And then the directions for that are on the form. And there we go, email them, and that completes your registration. And then I will get you into the system, and you will receive back a link to get registered for the student site and to get registered for the webinars, and you will be good to go. And if you've got any questions through the process, I'm as close as your email or your phone to help you get through it. Here is another case of menopause. Now, this client was interesting because she had been a client of mine about 20 years prior, and she'd had some other health issues that I had helped her with. We'd worked together for about 5 or 6 appointments, and then she felt like she was good to go, so she faded off into the sunset. But when these new issues came up, I was the one she thought of. That was great. So she came in with these menopausal issues. She had been on hormone replacement therapy for about 3 years, on antidepressants as well, because menopause had really played with her emotional stability. And she felt she needed both of those to stay stable, but she wanted to get off them, and she wanted to solve the hot flashes. And so her doctor had done all that he could, and so this client was frustrated, wanted more. She wanted to come off both of the meds, and she was starting to ease off them slowly and wanted some support because she didn't want to have all kinds of symptoms with them. Okay, so she's got those classic contraction furrows and radial furrows going, right? So we know this means she functions in her sympathetic system more, and that it's all intensified because she's got radial furrows. I asked her about her diet, and really, it's really good. Very nutrition conscious, and she gets lots of good vegetables and good protein. And in fact, she described things that I didn't even know exist. Her genetic background is she's Lebanese, and she does a lot of traditional Lebanese food, which is a lot of protein and veggies, and she just loves it. She did need to boost her protein a little bit, I felt. She exercises regularly, and she does a lot of different things, so good variety there. She has something in her eyes called a lipemic diathesis. Do you see this white band, this foggy, fuzzy, smoky, hazy, foggy white band going around there? That's a lipemic diathesis. When we see the lipemic diathesis, it suggests that her liver has an enzyme imbalance, and that enzyme imbalance is messing up how she processes her carbs and her fats. So the next logical question is, does she have issues with cholesterol or triglycerides? It's important to know the lipemic diathesis is not a genetic sign. It's not an iris sign. It is a cornea sign. It accumulates with time. The earlier we see this in a person's life, the more important or the bigger the problem is. The bigger, the fatter, the wider, the more opaque this is, the more of an impact it has. And so she's 58. This is a pretty significant lipemic diathesis, even for someone who's 58. So I asked her about her cholesterol and her triglycerides, and they're fine, which is interesting because we see this, and this suggests that things are out of balance, but they maybe just are not at a clinical level yet. We know that cholesterol is the basis for hormones, right? And that the liver is what takes our carbs and manufactures cholesterol out of those carbs. And we know that cholesterol is the basis for the hormones, and we know the liver does like 500 other jobs. So one of the harshest things that a person can do for her liver is, let's have you guess, can you type in what are some of the harshest things you know of for the liver? If you know someone's got a liver issue, what are you telling them to avoid? Medications, yeah. Medications are often a bad one. Alcohol, that's another great suggestion, Courtney, right on. Alcohol again. Liver, alcohol, processed sugars, carbs, yeah. Anyone want to weigh in with something different? There's one more that's pretty significant. It would be coffee. Coffee, right? And so as I've worked with this client, she likes doing research and she likes trying to figure it all out. And so I sent her research. I love going online and I type in what I want and put scholarly behind it. And that brings up lots of controlled clinical studies for whatever I'm looking for. And so I love doing that. So I sent her links to research that had been done that showed that coffee doesn't necessarily cause issues for the liver, but it makes hot flashes worse. She's a social worker. She loves that research. And I'm trying to talk her out of her coffee and suggesting that she get the protein up a little bit. She ate organic protein. That was great. Suggested that she could increase her leafy greens a bit more to support her liver. She was good with that, but that coffee thing, dang it, she just didn't want to do it. I shared a study from 2015 from a journal called Menopause, and it showed that out of 1,806 women who were assessed for hot flashes and sweating, coffee drinking was shown to have a significant impact, making vasomotor symptoms worse. While my client didn't like what she read in the report, she appreciated the science behind it. She was reducing her coffee, but she got it down to 1 cup a day. And it's a Turkish coffee. Now, I don't drink coffee. I don't know what that means, but she drinks, I think it's called Turkish coffee. And she will not give up that 1 cup a day. And that is where her progress has halted. So, it's just really, that's what she's happy with, right? And that's where I have to be happy with it for her too. Now, you'll notice these pictures are amazing. They're really clear. Everything we've looked at has been really clear. So we need to talk a little bit about iridology equipment. You go online and you see these amazing pictures, and then you see pictures that people have posted that are really kind of not great. And chances are they were done with a smartphone, which is really not great. And so as we look at that, oh my goodness, I'm not sure why. My computer does not want to let these go forward. So we're going to do this way again. I love technology when it works. I really do. Oh. Okay. Not okay. There we go. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Got it. To do iridology really well, and to get the kind of images we're looking at, you do need good equipment. And if you decide that you're going to take that leap at some point in time, talk to me. I'll connect you with the right people to get the equipment that I think is the best. But because most of us don't have $5,000 sitting in our back pocket, right? You start where you have to. And I suggest starting with a good pen light and some kind of a magnifying device that is 5 to 10 power. And a lighted magnifier. This has interchangeable lenses, so we have different powers available. You want the fixed lighting, but you also want movable lighting because you see different things if you can move the light around. So for like 50 bucks, maybe 75 at the outside, you've got equipment to work with. You'll see things online called iriscopes that sell for about 200 US. Don't go there. Don't go there. They are no better really than your cell phone. They're a 5 megapixel, which is a low resolution, and it's not great. So don't spend your money there. Get good equipment or stick with handheld. We all have handheld. I have my little pencil case that has my handheld equipment in it. And if I need a quick peek at something and I don't want to call photos up online, I've got what I need right here. I just take my look that way and move on. So don't go thinking you need big fancy equipment for this. So what is the process then? What is the actual process? In a consultation, this is what it looks like. I greet the client. I start in that first session, I ask what they would like my help with. They have their shopping list. I always encourage them when they're booking the appointment, make a list of the things that you want to talk about so you don't forget anything. The doctors give you 2 questions here in Canada, some are down to 1. I let them have the hour, however we need to spend the hour, right? Then after they've given me their shopping list and I know their name, their age, their height, their weight, things like that, then I look at their eyes. I will take photos and I work off those on my computer. But before I owned a camera, I just looked with my handheld equipment. The very equipment that you saw me working with there, some of that equipment is 40 years old. And then I ask questions based on what I see in their eyes that links back to what their shopping list was. I stay focused on their shopping list and their eyes and linking those 2 things together. The markings always guide what I'm working with, what I'm asking. And then I create that short list of recommendations, and my client never sees this short list. So I'm also making notes about all the markings I see, not just the ones that correlate to their problems, but I make little point form notes of what I'm seeing. Then I make point form notes about what I would like to recommend. And then from there, I choose a couple of things that they can work on. I teach them about 1 or 2 of the markings I see in their eyes, how they relate to the issues the client has problems with. And then we talk about just a couple of changes they could make in the next month that I know they could be successful with. Okay, things that I know will give them obvious results fairly quickly. When I look in their eyes in their next appointment, it's not to actually bump back that. It's not to see if their eyes have changed, because the irides will not change. The irides are genetically set. We're going to look at sclera in just a moment. I look at the sclera to see if we're seeing changes there yet. I look to see if the client's giving me new information that helps me see their eyes in a different light, right? And so it's always looking back to see, do I see this in a different way now? So PCOS. This is another young woman. She was in her 20s, early 20s when she came to see me. She was in university in Hawaii. I've only actually seen her once, and she had no idea she had PCOS. So she came in and we're talking, and I'm asking, she's talking about weight gain and she wants to lose weight. So I ask her about her cycles. And I say, are your cycles regular? I say, yes. She says, well, like every 28 to 32 days. And she says, yeah, they're usually 4 weeks late. So are you telling me that you actually have a cycle every 60 days? She said, yeah, that would be more accurate. Got it. I'm thinking PCOS. So I look at her eyes, and this is a little hard to see. You see this blood vessel coming up here, and you see at the end, it has a little bit of a diffuse looking bluish dot that maybe, depending on your computer screen, has a bit of a brownish smudge around it. This is a fermentation sign. This suggests she does not handle her carbs well and she's fermenting them. This is a very common indicator in anyone with PCOS or with yeast issues, right? They both involve the improper processing of carbohydrates. So vessel with a blobby thing at the end that is usually blue or brown and has often a bit of a brown muddy haze, diffuse muddy haze around it. So we suggested that she eat more vegetables and that she especially work on her leafy greens and that she go for walks every day because she wasn't walking much. She was using the campus meal plan and eating food from the cafeteria, which is pure carb, not good. This is another client of mine who is menopausal. She's just in that last few years of winding down and ending her period, so things are a little irregular for her right now. But you look at her and notice she's got the same thing happening here, and it looks like she's setting it up right here and right here as well. So we asked her about her carb cravings, and yeah, she really fights them hard. She works out a lot, but the weight is still creeping on. And so we've had to really talk about proteins. She needs her protein to support her workouts. She needs the leafy green vegetables. And then, you know, we could get in there maybe with some cinnamon or some berberine, something like that, to get her blood sugars a little more stabilized. This is a client who has infertility undiagnosed. The doctors have not given her any information. She's just been trying to get pregnant and has not had any success. I've seen her twice so far. She's 31. Her periods were slow to start after she came off the pills. So she came off the pill, and rather than her periods starting right up, she took 3 or 4 months for them to settle in. And she's been off the pill for a full year with no joy in getting pregnant. Brown eyes increases the risk of liver issues. Brown in the eyes increases the risk of being MTHFR. She's got lots of these petal shapes in her eyes. We've seen the, oh, get the other cursor mouse here. We've seen lots of lots of marks like this in other eyes, but these suggest, because she's got so many, that she is more likely prone to having hormonal imbalances on every front. She also has them specifically in pancreas reaction zones, which again has a strong link to insulin resistance, to blood sugar imbalances, and to PCOS. She also has markings coming in to the liver zone in both eyes, and she also has a really sandy texture, sandy texture to her eyes, which suggests she doesn't hold her calcium well. Okay, and you need calcium to balance your hormones, and so we've got work to do. Let's do another quick poll here. Quick poll, quick poll, quick poll. Which glands are usually exhausted in women by the time they hit menopause? Yeah, everyone's got it right so far. Yeah, you've probably all noticed this correlation, right? Right? Anyone else want to weigh in? 75% of you have, and you've all got it right so far. That is absolutely brilliant, bar none. Well done. The ovaries, they need support. Women need to support their ovaries in a huge, huge way. Their adrenals, rather. Adrenals, it's the adrenals that are exhausted, not the ovaries, sorry. Misspoke, concerned about being overtime here. So what did we do with this client? Again, I've only seen her twice so far. We are early on in our work together. So aside from her diet, we've really built up her protein, cut back her carbs, and we've insisted on her using a prenatal vitamin that has the methylated Bs. We've put her on a truckload of omega-3. And next appointment, we are going to be introducing a supplement that has inositol. We're watching her temperature charts, and because we are just into the second chart, we don't know what changes we're going to see yet. But I'm excited at the possibilities, because she really has the possibility that she's going to be helped by all of this. So this is, again, another client who has undiagnosed infertility. And okay, sorry, somehow my slides are messed up and I'm not sure where. There we go. That's what I want. There. This client, undiagnosed infertility, she'd have a banana or pastry for breakfast, chocolate or granola bar for snack. Again, Asian, so there was always white rice or white bread. Lots of noodles in her day, so not a great diet. We boosted her protein, and look at all of the fermentation signs. She's got multiples in both eyes, some of them very small. So we know she's not handling her carbs properly. We need to work on that. Okay, so the system is being really slow with rolling the slides over. Really slow. Okay, so I'm going to do the jump out and jump back in again. Okay, another client, undiagnosed infertility. You know, sometimes we can help people, sometimes we can't, and that's the sad part. We can teach this client a ton, though, about her health and her wellness. So as we look at this and we see that she's got blue eyes, that tells us a lot. We can look at the sclera, that tells us a lot. So let's do a 5-minute analysis and you'll see just how quickly this can go. So this is a female client in her mid-30s, very, very clean diet. My goodness, her diet puts mine to shame. Organic from scratch, you name it, she does it. No grain, no sugar, no, oh my goodness, she's pure. She's been trying for 4 years to get pregnant. They decided to go with IVF. They did the egg retrieval, and what they discovered is that her eggs were very, very poor quality. When they inseminated the eggs, they out of about 7 embryos that actually started, all of them were fragmented embryos, some more so than others. So none of them were going to be viable for a transfer. The one challenge I have with this client is she is so desperate to get pregnant that I start her on a program. She goes and she does more research and she comes in using other things as well. And it's like, no, no, no. We need to stay focused. We need to stay true to a program to assess whether it's working or not. When you start making the cake using 5 different recipes, we don't end up where we want to be. She has regular periods, but she's got a very short luteal cycle, which means she's probably not MTHFR, but she's got brown she's probably not PCOS, but she's got brown in her eyes, which suggests she might be MTHFR. All of her other blood work comes back normal, but her hair mineral analysis did not. And it shows that she's got very poor mineral assimilation. So when you see eyes like this, we need to note she's got the brown pigment. We need to look at liver. What is her liver doing? We need to ask questions about how she handles her fats, her skin, because liver will show up in the skin. We need to look and see if she's got any jaundice in the whites of her eyes. We need to understand that each pigment type gives us information about different organs and how they affect the body. So very important. She has a few little petal shapes in her eye. She's got one here, she's got some here, she's got one here. These are sitting in key reaction fields, and so we need to understand what's happening with those organs and ask her questions, particularly about ovaries, about ovulation, about pain, about middle schmerz, about anything where she can give us information that way. We also are going to ask, because she's got enough of these in her eyes, about blood sugar balance. Specific marker areas can suggest blood sugar balance, but any that are tucked in close to the collarette also suggest a risk of blood sugar balance. She's got a dark and uneven color at the pupil's edge, which suggests she doesn't digest protein well. She may not assimilate nutrients in general very well. The pigments are sitting in, some of them are in very special places, like this one is sitting in the vaginal area. This one is sitting fairly close to the ovary area, so we really need to be looking at that. We want to look at her sclera right here, which suggests that her thyroid, she may be acquiring some thyroid issues. No genetic programming for it, but something in her lifestyle is allowing this to happen. We may need to make sure she's getting both her tyrosine and her iodine and her magnesium to make that thyroid behave itself. She's got a transversal in her left eye at about 25 minutes, which is in the ovary area. So that has my concern as well. And again, the symptoms or the markings that we see in the sclera may not always be clinical yet, because sclera typically precedes clinical indications. So how does all this benefit you? Well, cut out your unpaid homework time. Do your homework right in your session. You'll be able to create therapeutic sequences in your sessions that will keep your clients coming back to help them be more successful. You'll be able to get rid of those lengthy intake forms and be able to develop rapport with your clients within minutes because you're looking at your client, and you'll be more precise in your client work. Again, for those of you who are interested in the fast action, you got to get there now. I hope it's actually still up because I set it to expire at 12:45. If it has expired and you're trying to get in there now and it's not giving you the special price, you need to send me an email. Send me an email, and if your email is time-stamped before 1 p.m. my time, so within the next 14 minutes, I will send you the link for the fast action registration. If, on the other hand, you don't get in at that time and you decide you would simply like to register when you're ready, these are your prices, and again, your confidentnutritionist.com link after 12 o'clock will take you to those prices. So Confident Nutritionist is your regular registration. Let's just do a couple more polls here really quick. See if you caught this one. What is the name of the marker that suggests a liver enzyme imbalance? Good job. Good job. I think most of you have voted, and we're seeing 86% got it right, which is everyone who's voted. It's lipemic diathesis. Well done, and let's wrap up with one more just to make sure you've got everything. I covered this very quickly, so did you catch it? The sclera is dynamic, so it changes. It shows genetic predispositions. It's always the same, holds no information that is of value. Okay, so far so good. This is a tough one because I covered this really, really fast. And the correct answer is it is dynamic. It changes. The iris shows us genetic predispositions. The sclera shows us what's going on now. So my friends, with that, that is all the information I have for you today. Thank you for being with me. I look so forward to having you in my class starting on October 17th. And I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye for now.